This preview is brought to you by Dollar Shave Club. Hey guys, Nick and Scott here,
Hello.
And we went to Ubisoft to check out a new game called Child of Light, which you may or may not have heard of. It is a very, very, very pretty JRPG, but made by not Japanese people.
Canadians.
Canadian. It's a CJRPG.
Yes.
Oh, now I'm thinking about like a San Andreas RPG, a CJ RPG. That would be a good game, but that's not what this is.
No.
This is a game about, I guess, an Austrian young girl.
It's a young Austrian princess whose mother died, and then his father was feeling super lonely, so he married the wrong woman.
Right.
And everything went terrible.
It's interesting. It's from Jeffrey O'Hallam, who is the guy who wrote Far Cry 3, which is, if you go read about, like, one of the most fascinating, weird stories in games ever. And this is kind of his attempt. We're putting up an interview with him soon, but this is sort of his attempt at writing a game that is a little bit more positive and maybe less subversive in an antagonistic way. And I think the reason Scott is here is because it is visual. So it's using the UbiArt engine, which is the one you probably know from Rayman Legends.
It's the first non-Rayman game to use the UbiArt framework engine. And the first thing you notice about this game is that it is visually stunning.
I think so,
it looks like a 2D watercolor painting. You can actually see, like when we first sat down, I said, "Whoa, look at that! You can see the texture of the watercolor paper on the background."
It's cool because it doesn't look exactly like Rayman. Like when someone tells you it's the Rayman engine, you're like, oh yeah, no, that does make sense. But it stylistically is fully unique.
Yeah, it's pulling from a lot of John Bauer art. He's a fantasy artist from the early 20th century, and the game is very heavy on watercolor and fantasy. But the one thing that I kind of pulled me out of this entire world is all the enemies and all the other creatures that you encounter have this super fluid 2D look. Very
convincing 2D look, yeah.
But the main character is a clearly rendered 3D model, which also suffers from the, I'm also an animation nerd, so warning. Her hair has like kind of Roger Rabbit ears. If you ever look at Roger Rabbit, now go YouTube Roger Rabbit, but his ears, even when he's not moving, his ears are going like this, like he's underwater.
See, I like that. I thought that was a cool
So her
look.
hair in this game is constantly moving even when she's still. It was a little distracting.
Maybe,
but,
yeah.
That's purely animation nitpicking.
Yeah, I think I did notice that it's a 3D model as well.
Yeah.
I thought it was slightly distracting, but the world is just so like compelling to explore visually, and I hope they get weird with it in like later parts of the game. Narratively, it's kind of bonkers. It's like written entirely in rhyme.
Entirely
like
in
the
rhyme.
entire game script from start to finish, all 200 pages of it, I think he told us, is written in rhyme, which is ambitious.
Very ambitious. Ambitious to the point in the very beginning of the game, you're seeing that he's struggling to make everything rhyme.
It's a lot of rhymes, and I mean, if it's not perfect rhyme. There are some sentences have a few more, some phrases have a few more syllables than you might.
It's not all an iambic pentameter.
No, to say the least. So the combat is kind of the part where you see it and you're like, oh, that's the JRPG inspiration. And I will admit right off the bat, I'm not a huge RPG guy.
Really?
Believe it or not.
Wow.
Yeah, in case you didn't pick up on that.
Shocking.
Yeah, but there's a really cool system in this game, the timeline thing, that apparently is inspired by Grandia 2. I'm going to go ahead and trust the rest of the world on that because I haven't played it. But it does this really neat thing where, over the course of a battle, there's a timeline at the bottom, and when you reach the end of the timeline, you get to attack. And enemies are also forced to use this timeline, and that's sort of where the co-op thing
there's a
comes in
co-op
together.
element where one person is playing Ara, the main character, and the other one is playing this, I can't remember the name, this light character.
Lightning bug, blue spark boy.
He gets power from wishes, which is kind of how I get my power. But he can go off, and a lot of the enemies are vulnerable to light, hence the title, Child of Light. And so that person can go over and kind of blind the enemies and slow their attacks down while your meter is recharging.
And it's cool because on the timeline, like it could be an enemy's turn next, and then your co-op partner can grab the enemy and slow them down, and then you're going the same speed, so you actually get to attack maybe twice in one turn or ahead of them.
Exactly.
It's pretty cool, and the direct comparison for the way the co-op stuff works for me was Mario Galaxy. Like it looks like moving that sprite around in Mario Galaxy's sort of like co-op, couch co-op mode. When I brought that up with the writer, he said that was kind of one of their inspirations, but he was quick to note that they really wanted this to feel more vital. than it does in Galaxy. In Galaxy, it's very much an afterthought. You just scrub up stuff on the screen. In this, like, it could, in theory, turn the tide of a battle completely.
And one other thing in the game is you're always collecting stuff, and it prides itself on saying there's unlimited crafting. So like there's a huge crafting element to this.
Yeah.
So you'll get a bunch of different gems, and you'll have to combine the gems to make a bigger gem, which will eventually make weapons and shields and stuff. So you're constantly collecting and crafting and figuring out the different.
And I mean, I didn't spend enough time with it to say whether or not it is how deep of an RPG it is, how deep the combat gets. There's a big crazy skill tree, but we just sort of got a taste of that. For me, what would make me come to Child of Light is how cool it looks. That engine is just fascinating. I want every game or more games to be built on that engine.
It is a really underutilized engine, and I'm very excited to see what Ubisoft does with the Ubi Art framework.
It's also apparently a very flexible engine, because at one point I grabbed the mouse and started accidentally dragging elements of the game around the screen, and I broke it a little bit, so sorry about that. But yeah, that's what we thought of Child of Light so far. If you are a JRPG fan or someone who likes games that are really, really pretty, definitely at least look at this and see what it is. We are also putting up an interview with Jeffrey where he talks about something that I thought was crazy, exploring the middle ground between indie games, like $10 indie games, and AAA $60 games, and that middle zone that doesn't really exist but probably will soon. So yeah, check that interview out, but yeah, that's what we thought.
Child of Light.
Child of Light. So, you may have seen that footage of the protagonist of Child of Light and been like, damn, how can I get like a soft, hairless face like she has? That's where Dollar Shave Club comes in. For a few bucks a month, Dollar Shave Club ships amazing razors and other bathroom stuff right to your door. Their blades are just as good as the big shave company's blades, but at a fraction of the price. They don't just sell razors either, they also have Dr. Carver's Easy Shave Butter and One Wipe Charlie's wipes for your butt. Shave time, shave money. Join now at dollarshaveclub.com/rev3games.